Welcome to Recogs, the show where we learn how the world's best operators build consumer brands from sourcing to selling. Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you a little bit about Manufactured. Manufactured is an online platform that helps brands manufacture, finance, and distribute inventory across 20 industries and 25 countries. Stick around after the interview where I chat with Pranay, the CEO of Manufactured, who shares his tips for building new products and operating successful brands. If you also need manufacturing help for your brand, visit manufactured.com. Thank you, Sean Riley, for the introduction to our guest today, Greg Brown, who is VP of Operations at Dude Products. Dude Products is a company that is revolutionizing the toilet paper aisle with their wipes. He was also an early hire on the operations team at RXBar. RXBar was one of the fastest growing nutrition bar brands. We discuss his experiences working at both RXBar and Dude, how their operations were different, some of the challenges, opportunities, how each company thought about introducing new SKUs and products versus scaling their current selection. Without further ado, here's Greg Brown. Greg, thank you so much for joining me here today. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Want to start at the very beginning. Why ops? Why consumer products? What was your interest?
Yeah, so ops drew me immediately because it's processes, and I love depicting processes and trying to rebuild them and make them as efficient as possible. So yeah, just how can we get to point A to point B as effectively as we can.
Why did it lead you down in terms of like for ops for like consumer products, like physical products specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all consumers, right? So you grow up kind of going to stores and picking goods off. For me, I started in merchandising, planograms, and it just kind of naturally was curious on how do we even get these items at this store. So from there, I just was continued asking questions, and that just led me to this supply chain route that I'm in now.
So I know you were on like the retailer side originally, right? You're working at Sears in their analytics side. How eventually did you land up at RXBar? What was some of the differences working for a brand rather than a retailer?
Yeah, so I mean, Sears was a great experience, great opportunity to learn a lot. Obviously, things there weren't going super well for that company, and I just saw an opportunity with my experience to get out. RX was about 20 people at the time. When I joined, they had a new supply chain team, about 4 people. I was coming in to be the 4th person, which was really cool, get to touch everything. Young kid, just wanted to learn as much as I can. So that just interests me. It was the learning opportunity. What exactly I was doing, I didn't know yet. I knew that I knew I had an analytical background, this kind of blend of IT and physical process, and how do you make those more efficient. And they kind of, joined the team, and next thing I knew, we're knee deep in inventory, order management, logistics. I mean, you name it, POs, manufacturing, whatever it is. I kind of just got thrown into the fire, and it was pretty wonderful.
You were also there, during a period of a lot of growth during RXBar, right? How were you thinking about inventory and also even launching like new flavors or different SKUs when it came to the growth side?
Yeah, so RX was crazy. We were the product was selling itself, retailers calling us up, trying to get their hands as much as possible. So from an inventory management standpoint, it was just trying to survive the next day, manufacturing as much as we can. Luckily, we had a great partner on the manufacturing side that was able to continue to add capacity and prioritize our line time, right? So that strategic partnership really enabled RX to be able to keep up with that growth and that demand. Not saying that there weren't challenges upstream the supply chain or downstream. RX bars at that time, the bar itself was the main, pretty much the only product, I believe, if I remember correctly. And dates, right? Dates are a part of that bar, and getting our between us and Larabar, I mean, we were taking up the entire date market. So we had to scramble and find dates, and that meant going out to Coachella, where the date farms are, and meeting with the vendors, and you know, boots on the ground type of stuff. It was very exciting, but you know, it made for a lot of constraints in our supply chain that we had to uh, figure out, and that also meant saying no to some customers on the sales side, right? It meant we can't just continue taking on business. I think if you listen to Peter Rahal, RX founders, how we built this, he talks about how, you know, they didn't accept Walmart right away, right? They couldn't take it. They knew that that would have been a constraint on the ops side of things. So it was business decisions like that that enabled us to keep inventory level, be able to produce enough to, you know, meet demand at the time.
So making sure and kind of investing more in terms of maybe the stores that you were currently in, to making sure you could fulfill those orders, and also accelerate those velocities before you kind of stretch yourself too much in terms of taking on new accounts.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I'm not on the sales side, so I don't want to speak exactly the strategy that they had, but it definitely was strategic in deciding on what we can take on at what point based on manufacturing and raw material sourcing capabilities.
And so, and you were saying how you were during RX on the manufacturing side, you were actually kind of in a really good spot in that the manufacturer had, maybe when they had excess capacity, or maybe put RXBar as a priority. But on the sourcing side, that actually is where it became the actual sourcing the raw ingredients, like dates, for example. That actually became quite challenging as you were going to scale. Is that roughly right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good depiction of what the situation was, and on top of that, our X-Bar grew so quickly. We didn't have the system infrastructure that companies, kind of that backbone that companies utilize to, you know, for growth, right? It's so important. So we were doing everything in Excel. I was making macros and, you know, writing VBA to figure this all out, and make it a little bit more automated. We were in QuickBooks at the time, right? So Excel, QuickBooks. Meanwhile, we're like becoming one of the largest brands in the country. We don't even have an ERP system. So, you know, it's like, it was a wonderful experience in just kind of bootstrapping and figuring it out. And, but that also made it challenging, right? No raw material planning systems in place to kind of help our procurement team figure out what do we need to place this, when do we need to place this PO with this vendor, right? So all those added constraints to the team, and made for some long nights.
Yeah, I mean, it's, on one hand, it's a very good problem to have, right? To have always want to be the hot product. Everybody wants your product, and that there's so much demand for it. But I think at the same time, as you're pointing out, you know, when you are a startup, when you are kind of like fast growing, and, you know, things are maybe breaking per se, you're also going to have to make some tough calls, like rejecting accounts, and to making sure that you can actually fulfill like your current orders. No, thank you for that information about how everything was at RXBar. When it came to inventory planning at RX, since you were growing so rapidly, how did you approach inventory? How much inventory would you order in order that you're able to fulfill with, and like, if it's like, let's say 6 months, 9 months, a year, or like what actually went into like the inventory planning part of it?
Yeah, so I was not a planner specifically, but definitely had to work very closely with the planners. And I mean, at the height of the growth, when we were still a really small team, right? It was planning month out. And our co-manufacturer was allowing us to do that and working with us. You know, maybe we had a 3-month plan, and obviously we had a business forecast that we were trying to target, but it was such quick growth, right? It was no way to really predict what was coming next. So for us, it was kind of get our hands on as much as we can. We knew we were going to sell it at that time, and produce as much as we can. It was more prioritizing, you know, flavors, and the downtime at the, you know, working with the co-man on the schedule, and how we transition flavors, because you got to clean the lines between, you know, moving from one flavor to the other. So, you know, food is obviously very complex supply chain, but But yeah, so really for us, it was a short planning cycle because we just needed that flexibility, based, without being able to truly forecast uh, our business because we were just growing that fast. It was unprecedented, to be honest.
That's wild. How also did you think about releasing new flavors? Because obviously you had so much demand. Of course, when you create new SKUs, then there's another whole supply chain in itself. Um, was was growth maybe as defined investing in new flavors, or was that kind of scaling like the current flavor profile?
Yeah, I think it was a mix, so once again, so things were changing so quickly. We didn't, in the early days, we didn't really have a defined commercialization process, so it was kind of Peter and the R&D's team, or team kind of coming up with an idea and testing something in the lab that was in the office that was like this little closet of a space. It was hilarious. It's the definition of a startup, let me tell you. And and sampling it with the office and saying, what do we think? And that was the early day commercialization process was, do we just like how this tastes and do we think our customers would like it? Meanwhile, we probably had about 5 or 6 SKUs out there, flavor SKUs. And one of the first things that we had to do was make sure that our top SKUs, I can't remember exactly, I think it was chocolate chip, was even in all the right stores. Because there were stores like Kroger's that weren't even with our best SKU. And it's like, how does that happen? And then as we matured as an organization, even pre-acquisition, we started, a few more people came on the team, and we started getting a little bit more organized. And that's when you started thinking about a more thought out commercialization process, SKU rationalization, right? And starting to say, hey, wait, this apple cinnamon spice, which was one of my favorites, actually isn't doing that great, So like, how do we plug this in and play with things? So I don't, it's hard to say it's an exact process and how we thought about it because it was kind of more ad hoc. At the time, right? And much more driven by Peter and the R&D team, kind of just playing around in the kitchen.
What's really also unique about your experience at RXBar, not only that it was such a fast growing brand and just was scaling, I couldn't even imagine how to do projections when you're scaling that quickly, and especially when you have like a month, you're thinking about ordering inventory at every new month. But you were also there pre-acquisition and post-acquisition. What were some of the things that changed when it came to the operations once Kellogg acquired RXBar?
Yeah, absolutely. So um, after my first year, we realized this is about 3 years pre-acquisition, or 2.5 years roughly. We realized we needed an ERP system, right? We need to get ourselves organized a little bit, create some processes, not as a scary word, but more as a word to, improve efficiencies. And and that was the start of the change, right? Not necessarily from a growth, but from a planning standpoint, and from how we cut POs, and even how we worked with vendors, and getting vendor management and getting all their specs, and all these things that were living in various places, Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever, and then the acquisition happened, and now, I mean, not only not only did we have to start meeting new requirements from a Kellogg standard, but we also are part of a public company, right? So you have controls that you have to start introducing to the business. You need separation of duty between different people, and like what the ops team used to do and now what the finance team does, right? They have to have some real separation. So it added a lot of complexities, and we had to take a step back and really look at the business and how it operates, and make some changes to who's doing what, really, and kind of define positions more. So your role became more narrow, right, and more defined. And then also that planning process, right? We had to give Kellogg a forecast. We had to, meet that forecast, and that trickled down. So you start getting like the real planning cycle, integrated business planning cycle starts being introduced. So you get all these more mature concepts that you see at larger organizations start coming into But, Kellogg didn't want to totally force us to change everything. We were a winning brand, right? So, they were delicate in the manner and really wanted RX to still be RX and not lose that flexibility and that energy and that millennial branding and so it was very interesting. They definitely we had to change processes to meet certain requirements. I think it was for the better, right? It forced us to mature a little bit. We had a planning cycle. We're no longer working on a month, right? We now have rolling 3 months, 6 months, year forecasts that we're reviewing. We got category managers now. We're meeting with them. We're having, so it formalized things a little bit, and it was a change for everyone, and sometimes good, and sometimes not the most fun ways. So
that makes a lot of sense. Maybe that kind of reminds you as like the company got acquired by Kellogg, maybe more of like Sears in terms of what like maybe similar roles and responsibilities, that it was kind of very clear. And whereas maybe before the acquisition, you were kind of like doing a lot of different things, and it was kind of everyone just all hands on deck all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way to put it.
So then you leave RXBar and you decide to join Dude Products. Why did you decide to join Dude?
Yeah, so my Dude story started about 2 years before I joined Dude. At that time, we just sold to Kellogg. I was at RX, and I was talking and helping lots of startup companies, just with a little advice, meetings here and there. Some mutual party introduced me to Sean, and they were having an EDI problem. We don't have to get into what EDI is, but it's how big retailers send you an order, pretty much. I met with them at Soho House. Half-hour conversation turned into a 2-hour conversation. We talked about business design and processes in the operational sector, and we just kept in touch. 2 years later, they were making their first hire outside the founders. I got a call from Sean. Haven't talked to the guy in 2 years, and he's like, "What's up? You ready to join the Dude team?" I mean, there was more to it, 100%, and there were interviews and stuff, but no, I mean, and I was excited. Kellogg and RX were great. Nothing bad to say there, but I was ready to kind of get back into that wear multiple hats role again.
What made you excited, just first of all, about Dude specifically as like a product and a brand? And then also, was like the culture kind of similar in terms of what it was like the pre acquisition at our RXBar in terms of what your role would be?
Yeah. So first off, Dude's just an awesome brand. I mean, if anyone listen to this podcast, you should listen to Sean's podcast on the other one. It's fantastic. It's a fun brand. They own what they do. They don't take it too seriously. It's just great. So the brand resonated with me, and it's always fun to work somewhere for a product that you enjoy. So that right off the bat got me interested. I was already using the product, and I was interested in the product, and so I was like, let's do it. As far as the atmosphere, my role, so at this point, I was coming into Dude in a little bit different of a role, kind of going back to my early days at RX rather than my later days at RX, where at the end of my RX, I was very much in process design across the business and optimizing how we did things. So at Dude, I got to do that as well as own the execution of those processes, right? So now, if a shipment doesn't get there in time, or we're out of inventory on something, right? It's also my responsibility outside of just making sure that process is as efficient as possible. So I was really excited about getting back into the execution side of things. So that was also very interesting. As far as the atmosphere, Dude is not in food, which Dude, and I'm not complaining because food is very complex. And and but I mean, I love food, but yeah, so it's a bit simpler, which I'm not gonna. It's definitely a positive.
Complain about. Yeah.
And Dude also did a great job early on in investing in technology, which is like I tell Sean all the time. It's one of the best things I think they've done. We had an ERP system, and ERP systems, they're evolving with your business, so they continually need work, right? As your business, the evolution of your business, right? They need to change every 10 million, probably you go up in revenue. They need to be able to handle that in some capacity. So I'm not saying it was, ready to go, but ERP system was in place. We had some processes. It was a bit more organized, right? I think RX's growth story is probably a little shorter, but like a little bit more hockey stick style. Dudes is by no means not, high growth, but it's more steadily high growth, right? So I think that's probably the difference. Overall, I mean, it's still a startup. You still got to wear all the hats. It's still been crazy ride, and it still is a crazy ride. I mean, we're nowhere close to being done on the growth story. So,
No, that's awesome. I mean, also I know that you said that in comparison to, RXBar, the growth maybe wasn't quite as dramatic per se, if that makes sense. But Dude's growth has been still unbelievable. I mean, what, you guys did like 90 million in sales last year, is that right?
but that we're on track for that this year. The growth over my
This year,
3
excuse me,
years,
this year. Okay.
yeah, the growth over I mean, it's been 30+% year over year. I mean,
Wow.
it's crazy. Once again, it's unprecedented growth, and it's the most fun. It's keeping up with it is the challenge, right? That's the business challenge. And you talk about inventory. I mean, that is a challenge, right? I think. Sean's talked about it, the great toilet paper shortage and how we were during COVID and how Dude was able to come in and kind of be, a little bit of a hero for some of these retailers and supply them when others couldn't. But now, even compared to now, our business is tripled, or I don't even know, more than tripled, and keeping up with that is still a challenge and something we're working through every day.
Wow. No. And I understand it, and love to kind of learn a bit more from the inventory side. Of course, you don't really have, well, I guess you do have probably expiration dates, but the expiration dates are probably a lot longer than they are with RX bar and a food product. So from a planning perspective, you can actually plan maybe much farther out than you could a food company. I would presume, which makes it easier as well.
Yeah, 100%. We can definitely plan it out, right? I think one thing we didn't talk about with RX, but that Dude, like any startup has, is you run it when you're growing. You have to have capital to buy inventory, right? And there's a cycle before you get paid again for selling that inventory. So really, that's with even a product like ours that doesn't have a short expiration date. It's not like we're just going to sit on a tremendous amount of inventory, right? Because that's dollars locked up in that inventory. Yeah, so you still have to be strategic in how much dollars you want to lock into that inventory that's sitting in your warehouse versus how much you're pulling in from actual payables, right? Your working capital. So really, yeah, it's just it's a balancing act during this type of period of growth that Dude's experiencing.
How do you also approach paying for your inventory at Dude? I've heard one one entrepreneur that came on uses actually mostly cash, which I thought was interesting. Another one uses actually financing tends to be, but would love to kind of hear from your perspective how you think about financing.
Yeah, so like I said, it's a bit of a balancing act, and we don't take a one strategy method here. Like it depends on the time of year. We have build up periods where we might use more of those credits or loans or whatever. And then we have other periods where we want to pay that down and use more cash. So it really kind of depends for us strategically what's coming up in the next quarter, right? You would be surprised there's some seasonality to wipes. I can't explain that to you. I don't get it myself. But there is a seasonality.
What is it? What is the seasonality? Like, what is like the high period?
Yeah, so definitely holidays. People love to put dude wipes in their stocking stuffer. It's a big one. Back to school is a really big one for us. So you see, coming right out of Q1's usually a pretty big quarter. We have some type of buildup leading into Q4 to carry us through Q4 into early Q1 is a buildup period. So that Q3 is a buildup period. That's probably when, from a funding of inventory, we're hitting closer to that credit limit, right, to fund our inventory. But then we pay it all back down because we're a very healthy business. And I think Sean talks about that. We treating this business to be profitable and to be run for a very long time that way. So I don't want to say it's one method over another. It just really depends on the timing of the year.
When you do have free working capital, how do you think about putting that money to work and investing in growth? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so from an operation side, right, there's a few things. I mean, from my perspective personally, it's about what investments can we make to make the business run more efficiently, and as I said, Dude did a great job even before I joined on being upfront and investing in technology before their growth story really hit hard, And we still are looking at that, and that is definitely one place that we put capital. As a broader business, marketing, opportunities. We're not a huge promotion business. We don't have a lot of trade spend going on, but there's always opportunities there when there's excess capital, right? But yeah, I would say when we're flush or if we're above plan, it's reinvesting into the business in either optimizations from a process standpoint or marketing. Will probably be the two leaders. Obviously, there's commercialization and product innovation, but those are always happening in the background. That's just strategic parts of the business to stay in front of.
Yeah, I mean, like what I also really appreciate about Dude as well is, of course, that it's bootstrapped. Which is incredible. And you have to, when you are bootstrapped, you typically, normally, unless you're, already probably millionaires or what have you, you tend to have to optimize for profitability a lot earlier than if you're venture backed. Not always the case, but usually that's the case, and be a bit more scrappy. When you think about entering a potentially new channel, a new sales channel, what's that analysis, and how do you define if that channel is profitable?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, any new channel, we have to look all the way down to the COGS, right, of the item. So it starts with, there's also the market side, right? So you got to balance the two. So, really, in the first new channel, you're looking at, is there a market for the channel, right? But assuming that you've already got past the whole, market analysis and okay, there's something there, there's an opportunity in this channel. Then it comes down to, well, can we make money on this item? Selling this, so you got to work back and you got to figure out your COGS and the cost to just manufacture, right? And then there's a cost to fulfill and to sell things, right? Ship things. So you kind of get all your costs in order and what we're going to sell it for, and is that price point competitive, or do we think the product has enough value for that price point that gives us the comfortable margin? So it's not a complex formula. You don't have to overthink it. I would say from a cost side of things to decide if it makes sense, it's actually probably more simple than from trying to understand the market of that category in that channel. So for us, we're very focused on wipes and that channel and growing our share of that channel. And the opportunity that we see is continuing to explore different scents and different items to enhance your bathroom experience. Things around the toilet is really where our focus is.
How do you also think about what new products to potentially launch? I mean, I remember, I think I saw in an interview that Sean and Dude launched deodorants like a few years ago, and then they decided to backtrack and not do deodorants and really focus on the toilet. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's right, and that's part of our strategy. Is not we want to be focused on our market, right? We're, I think, at 1% of the toilet paper category, right? And earlier, we're on track for 90 million, or forecast 90 million this year, and 1%, right? And there's so much room to grow there, and you know, it takes so much effort to launch different categories and expand those brands. And you don't see, think of some of our competitors, right? Outside of like maybe dry toilet paper, they're not diversified. They're not making cottonelles, not making deodorants and different things. They're focused. And to compete with them and continue taking market share from them, we need to be focused. And there's a lot of opportunity in that focus. We're in a growing category, and the wet wipes is growing. Dry wipes is declining, and we're leading that growth based on market data. So it's a good position to be laser focused. That is why they rolled back the deodorants and some of the other initial category.
Yeah, it was a really great interview. I think it was like, what was like your one lesson learned, because Mark Cuban, I think, is the only outside investor in Dude Wipes, I'm pretty sure, or maybe not.
Yeah, I believe so.
But I remember like that Mark was saying to there's like this great article. Highly recommend founders that are listening to read it, because I think it's really insightful around what focus means. And it's this really cool article about how Mark was like telling Sean, like, you need to focus. And Sean said, I actually didn't do that. I then decided to go in deodorants and kind of this, like, think about the bathroom, right? And it just in general, or rather items that would be in your, bathroom in general. And then from that, he realized that actually what he needed to do was focus and actually go back to kind of the core product and really make, and really focus on that. As you said, it's only 1% that are wipes.
That is exactly what we preach at the office, at the company. It's our culture. It's that we're going to disrupt this industry, we're going to make, and that's from product innovation within the wipes to, sure, we have these things called like Dude Bombs, and they're like, you drop them at the toilet. So it's like a very supplemental product. But we're not going to chase down creating a platform, we're very focused, and yeah, 1%. I mean, it's ours to get.
And I'd imagine from like an operations perspective, you must love that, because it's like, okay, great. We're like, I don't have to deal with like a whole new SKU. Like, we're not going to be releasing like probably too many SKUs. You know what I mean? It's like, great. Let's just scale like our current product offering, since it's only 1%. Like, this is a lot more manageable to do, right? Than to actually then to expand your product portfolio.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great opportunity for us to really hone in our processes and how we commercialize, because right now we are adding new scents. We just launched shea butter and into Walmart, and the learning, right? How do you meet the expectation of the customer, a big customer like Walmart, and the timing that it takes, and working with our co-man on, how long it takes to get the art approved and the new line, and you got to test on the line, and there's going to be problems. If you don't think there's going to be a problem, you're kidding yourself, so for us, it's setting us up so that when we are at the phase that we want to expand categories, we're going to have a playbook. We know exactly how to do it. So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, Dude is doing a lot of things the right way by not forcing anything and being very focused.
Incredible. That's awesome. How have you dealt and have you had any issues with dead stock or inventory that you haven't been able to sell? And if so, how do you actually deal with it?
Yeah, so we don't have too many issues. We because we're focused. Obviously, when we're getting out of categories is when we had our biggest issues, and we have pretty much gotten through that over the last 2 years. But right now, I would say like a challenge for us around inventory is managing our customers' inventory, right? So we want to make sure, especially like in Amazon or someone like that, they're not overbuying for what they have, because that takes a lot of our inventory, right? And then they're sitting on it. And then it also, it makes sales kind of a little bit up and down, like, oh, they bought a lot up in, March, and now like, why are they not buying much? And it's not like our velocities aren't great. They are great. It's more just an issue of working with your partners and making sure that they're holding the right amount. It could be, hey guys, you need to buy a little bit more because we're seeing velocities, in the market, things are turning faster than expected. Or hey, like, let's talk about why we're buying so much of this SKU. So we're really working and honing in kind of that partnership with our retailers, and making sure that they are getting the most out of that partnership with us.
Though that's really interesting. I imagine that also, as you say, like can get quite complex when it comes to SKU management, when it comes to dead stock or stock that your customers, the retailers are actually unable to sell, considering as well that it's also like a little bit of a seasonal business as well when you take that into consideration.
Yeah, and I think the thing is like a lot of these retailers, they don't deal with high growth companies like us, so they have a hard time purchasing. Well, how do we forecast their business? Well, it's a hard business to forecast because we're going so fast, and they and let me tell you, more often than not, it's actually the opposite of like, hey guys, like we're seeing out of stock coming at your stores. Like you need to purchase more. Is usually the conversations that we have. I brought the Amazon example up just because that was a unique one where they were like, whoa, like this business, it's all computerized there, it's all algorithms, and their algorithm was like, oh, their business is killing it. Let's just buy a boatload of this stuff, and we were like, wait a second, like we love it, but we need to take a step back and say, is this the best thing to do for both parties? So yeah, it's a different way. It's a different problem than I've had to face in the past, which is fun.
Totally. And I remember you saying how during COVID, Dude kind of like definitely, I mean, obviously it fulfills a need, but definitely was fulfilled even a greater need maybe during COVID, just because of, toilet paper supply, everything that was happening with that. As the world has opened up, how has demand changed?
Yeah, this is something that's really interesting in the Dude growth story. Obviously there was a tremendous amount of forced trial into the category, specifically Dude, because Dude was able to be on shelf when a lot of companies couldn't be. So you got all this forced trial, and one of the big questions coming out of that was, are people going to stick with it? And you find that a tremendous amount of people did, and heavy category buyers started to fully adopt into this wet wipe category, and Dude specifically. So we have seen not only being able to hold that growth, but as we kind of discussed earlier, we've seen that growth expedite, right? Because heavy category buyers and bringing in, maybe lighter buyers, and expanding. And Dude also is just expanding its reach as well. So yeah, overall, it's exponential growth, and even post COVID. And from an inventory position, it's new lines at the manufacturer, more dedicated space. Just very strategically working with them on what our needs are now, but like where we see the business going, because that is one of our biggest concerns is constraint on the manufacturing side.
Yeah, no, that's That's great to hear that even though we wish COVID never happened, but that the forced trial actually seemed to work in terms of that I actually in terms of penetration. That's actually sustainable.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, not very often do you use something dry to clean something.
My final question to you, Greg: what would you value more? $100 in COGS, $100 in inventory, or $100 cash?
Well, $100 in COGS. So, yeah, because you can turn that into, much more.
Love it. Love it. I would have thought the same thing. Greg, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
And there you have it. It was a pleasure chatting with Greg. Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show. Now for my conversation with Pranay. So listeners, before we let you go, we wanted to give you some tips on how to help operate your business and learn how Manufactured is helping businesses. So we have Manufactured CEO Pranay Srinivasan, who's CEO of Manufactured here on the line. Pranay, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. So what are like some of the ways when kind of customers or potential customers come to Manufactured, what are some of like the pain points that they're actually going through, and maybe what's like a case study where Manufactured has really helped?
Yeah, so I think we started out as a pure manufacturing company, that hence the name manufactured, because all we did was make products for customers. And so the biggest pain point we have with customers coming to us was saying, I want to change my factory. So find me a new factory. I need to add a factory because I can't keep up. Or, will you find a new product, make a new product for me? So that was the first pain point we were solving, which is product related. Okay, I want to make you a new product, find a new product. But as we started doing business with those customers and making new products, they kept bumping into this finance problem, which is I don't know how to finance more inventory. I'm growing faster. So if you think about a use case, a customer did $1 million last year in top line, which is a standard e-commerce company. And this year they're going to do $2 million because they know how quickly they sell out of the inventory. But if they go to a bank or go to any other financing platform and they tell them, I did $1 million last year and I want you to give me $1 million in inventory because I'm going to sell 2 million this year, nobody will give it to them because they don't actually understand the same inventory risk. I don't know how to sell product. I don't know how to make product. So why the hell would I finance product that I don't know you can sell? You only did $1 million, so I'm going to give you a portion of that because that's less risky for me. So here's 300 grand. And so now you have to take 300 grand and do $2 million. And that is where the problem is. And that's why Shopify Capital exists. That's why Kick Further exists. That's why all these companies exist, because they have to cobble together 6 people at the same time of 300 grand each, or 3 people of 300 grand each, and then be paying 45% interest rates so that they can pay back the cost of goods over time. And this is why we had started figuring out how to help our customers finance inventory, because we could see the inventory risk much clearer than other people could. And we were like, this is a no-brainer. You've sold this 6 times. You'll sell this again. Why aren't you able to afford inventory? And they're like, we don't have the money. Why don't you have the money? It takes 3 months to sell the product. So why can't you go borrow money from somewhere else? Well, Uncle Joe doesn't have money anymore, and my bank won't give me more than 30% of last year's revenue, and I'm doubling once every year. So we started our own finance company. And now we're realizing that there are companies who basically been selling inventory all along, but have no clue how to approach international distributors, who have no clue how to list on international marketplaces, who don't have any idea how to set up overseas presences, and don't have the volume. So imagine you do $2 million a year in the US, and you have people in Australia asking for your product, and that Australian demand is $100,000. Now you cannot capture $100,000 demand. You will be like, buy from my US website, and they'll be like, the shipping's too expensive. But if somebody was there who basically took care of their Australian product and basically increased your revenue by $200,000, you would pay them 6% or 10% to just handle that transaction for them. That doesn't exist today. So that's the next step that we're going to do, is allow you to sell product.
That's also a good question in terms of when is the right time to enter a new sales channel or actually go into a new market? Like, and also how do you think about like when for entrepreneurs, what's kind of the best mix when it comes to wholesale versus retail versus international channels, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you need to be able to go after channels that work for you. So you're going to experiment with a lot of channels to start with. You're going to try marketplace channels like Etsy and Amazon. You're going to try or Walmart and Amazon. You're going to try direct channels, which is essentially Shopify or something like that. And you're then going to try and go after wholesale channels, institutional channels, international channels. There's a lot of different channels that are out there. And now you're starting to see specialized distributors stand up who'll say, I'll do your Amazon in Tunisia. I'll do your wholesale in Middle East. I'll do your big box retail in South Africa. Like there's highly specific kind of distribution channels that have been set up over time. The time to understand when to do a new channel is like, for example, you've been using Facebook to acquire customers and running it through Shopify, and now you're hitting a local maximum where your price of CAC is going up and you're seeing the economics actually start becoming a little more plateaued. You then try to figure out what the other channels are. The flip side of this is you might be doing 50,000 units a year on Facebook or on Shopify, and you realize that for you to get to the lower cost, so you to drop prices, so there's only two ways you can do it, right? You need to grow your revenue profitably or you reduce your cost. So let's just say you have a marketing acquisition cost that is starting to plateau, and you realize that if you basically went from 50,000 units to 200,000 units, your cost would drop 25%. So what do? Then you go to big box wholesalers and be like, I will sell my product to you at a wholesale price where the retailer keeps 40% of the margin. There's no cap there, essentially, because you're just personally going out and doing meetings. But you might make a 25-30% gross margin on that particular wholesale value, but they'll buy 3 times the more amount you buy for e-commerce. And now you've been able to drop your cost 20%, and you basically got a 30% gross margin with no cap that goes straight to your bottom line. That's how you actually create a mix of channels. The best in class DTC channel customers now are doing about 30% or 40% of their revenue in wholesale, but about 60% of their volume on wholesale. They're doing 60 to 70% of their volume DTC, but they're doing 30 to 40% of their volume DTC. Right? So it's a 40, 60, 40 or 30, 70 split, where 70% of your volume is going to wholesale, where only 40% of your revenue, but say 30% of your volume going to DTC, but that's 60% of your revenue.
And that's our episode for today. Thanks for listening to the whole thing, and I hope it was helpful. For more information about Manufactured, head to manufactured.com. It's also in the show notes. Thanks for listening.